My name is Michaela Thornton, and I am the program coordinator. I will be conducting the beginning of this presentation, and my colleague, Annette Barganer, will cover the application walkthrough closer to the end of the presentation. Today, we'll go over a high-level overview of the TCFP grant program. For more details, please refer to the Request for Grant Applications, or RFGA, found on the program's website. During this webinar, all microphones will be muted and cameras will be disabled until the end of the presentation, when we will do a Q&A session. Please refrain from asking questions until the end of the presentation. Also, please write down the number of the slide you have a question about so we can refer back to it during the Q&A session. When the presentation is complete, we'll stop the recording and give everyone an opportunity to ask their questions. Please use the raise hand function and we will call you in the order your hands were raised. We will do our best to get all the questions as time permits. For our agenda today, we will go over some of the TCFP program highlights, touch on program requirements and scoring, and cover the basic grant process. Please note that for this grant round, you can only submit applications via an online portal. Later, Annette will provide an application walkthrough for you and talk about the new online portal. Then, we'll take any questions that you may have. This grant round, TCFP has $16.9 million in funding, with 50% allocated for projects that include the purchase of zero-emission vehicles. There will be a 60-day window to submit applications. TCFP is a competitive program where we compare applications against one another and score them for selection after the closing date. There is no advantage to submitting the application as soon as possible, as the scoring criteria is based on how effective the project would be for reducing air pollutant emissions. This program is also a reimbursement-based program. Eligible applicants include an individual or entity with a fleet of 75 or more vehicles that are registered in Texas. An applicant must submit a minimum of 10 vehicles for replacement per application. An applicant will still be eligible to receive funding if TCEQ determines that one or more vehicles included in the application are not eligible. All business entities, such as corporations or partnerships, must have an active registration with the Texas Secretary of State by no later than January 24th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Central. If awarded a contract, businesses must maintain an active registration during the contract period. Vehicles being replaced must be an on-road heavy-duty or light-duty diesel-powered vehicle. A heavy-duty vehicle has a gross vehicle weight rating, or GVWR, greater than 8,500 pounds and contains an engine certified to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, heavy-duty engine emission standards. And a light-duty vehicle has a GVWR of less than 10,000 pounds and is certified to the EPA light-duty vehicle emission standards. Vehicles being replaced must have been owned, leased, or otherwise commercially financed and registered and operated by the applicant in Texas for at least the 2 years immediately preceding the application signature date and be in operating condition with at least 2 years of useful life remaining. TCEQ may consider a request to waive one or more of the ownership, registration, or usage requirements on a finding of good cause. This may include short lapses in registration or operation due to economic conditions, seasonal work, or other circumstances. Applicants must complete and submit a separate waiver request form for each activity that includes a request to waive one or more of the ownership, registration, or usage requirements. Waiver requests must be submitted along with the application to be considered. TCEQ will review these waiver requests on a case-by-case basis. You may also consider waiving the ownership requirement for the replacement and disposition of third-party vehicles if the applicant can demonstrate good cause and establish permission from the vehicle owner, demonstrate that absent the grant, the vehicles being replaced would have continued to be operated in Texas, certify that each vehicle has been registered and operated in Texas for the 2 years preceding the application signature date, certify that the vehicles are in operating condition with at least 2 years of useful life remaining, and will be replaced with a qualifying vehicle of the same weight classification and used in the same application or vocation. If awarded a grant, a grantee must provide proof of ownership of the third-party vehicles before being reimbursed by TCEQ. The qualifying vehicles must be new motor vehicles that have not been subject of a retail sale, vehicles of the same weight classification and used in the same vocation as the vehicles being replaced, hybrid vehicles or vehicles fueled by an alternative fuel, including electricity, compressed natural gas, liquefied natural gas, hydrogen, propane, or methanol. Vehicles certified to the current federal emission standards applicable to the vehicle and/or engine, or vehicles certified to emit at least 25% less nitrogen oxides or NOx than the certified federal emission standard applicable to the vehicles being replaced. Please note that as a condition of receiving a grant, you will be required to operate the new vehicle in accordance with the usage requirements. For more details, please see Section 2.6 of the RFGA. In this program, non-road vehicles and neighborhood electric vehicles are not considered qualified vehicles. Furthermore, vehicles that have been used as a qualifying vehicle for a grant under this program for a previous reporting period or by another entity, or qualified for a similar grant or tax credit, are not considered qualified vehicles under this TCFP grant round. Grantees commit to own or lease to purchase the grant-funded vehicles for the duration of the contract. Each qualifying vehicle must operate at least 25% of its total annual mileage in the eligible counties of the Clean Transportation Zone, or CTZ, and at least 75% of its total annual mileage in Texas. A map of the eligible counties in the CTZ will be on the next slide. The applicant is required to indicate in the application the percentage of the qualifying vehicle's total annual miles of operation that will occur in the eligible counties of the CTZ, in addition to keeping mileage and location records of the grant-funded vehicle. Here's a map of the CTZ. Please note that 25% of the annual miles on the grant-funded vehicle must occur in the highlighted counties. I'll give about a minute so you can look at the map. An applicant may request up to 80% of the eligible cost associated with the purchase of the grant-funded vehicle. TCEQ will consider a lease with a binding commitment to buy and retain ownership of the grant-funded vehicle at the end of the lease, referred to as a lease purchase agreement, as a purchase. Emissions reductions achieved by a TCFP grant may not be combined with or be assigned for use by other incentive programs. Ineligible costs include insurance premiums, finance fees and charges, salaries and travel expenses for employees of the grantee, expenses of any lobbyists, costs associated with this application, administrative costs of the grantee, any costs paid before the grant round opened, and food and drink. All applications must be submitted through the SUNS online portal. All required attachments are submitted through the online portal as well. Attachments must clearly describe its contents. For example, if you are submitting a W-9 form, simply name the attachment W-9. The online application will accept between 10 and 20 activities. You must apply with a minimum of 10 activities. If you have more than 20 activities, you can submit additional applications. Applications must be received no later than 5 p.m. Central Time on March 21st, 2025. All links will be available on the program website. When using the online application portal, you must complete each section in full before being allowed to move to subsequent sections of the application. Attachments and signatures are also required in order to submit the application. We will cover required attachments over the next 2 slides. You must submit the following with your application: a completed IRS Form W-9. If you are applying as an individual or a sole proprietor, then a state or federal ID is required. Copy of registration documents for all old vehicles, and copy of vehicle titles for all old vehicles. Your application must also include color photographs of the front, back, left side, right side, engine, and engine plate of the old vehicle. If the new vehicle has been purchased, the purchase papers must be submitted, and a waiver request if applicable. Applications for eligible projects will be evaluated, scored, and ranked according to the following scoring breakdown: 50 points for the lowest cost per ton of NOx reduced, 30 points awarded for the highest projected NOx reductions, and 20 points for operating at least 75% in non-attainment areas. It is important to note that if you are selected for a grant, any changes made to the application that reduce the total project score will make any resulting contracts avoidable. Applicants are not required to compute the cost per ton of NOx reduced or the total projected NOx reductions for their project, as they will be determined by TURP staff. For those wishing to perform their own calculations, instructions are provided in the TCFP technical supplement. In addition, a TCFP grant estimator for light-duty and heavy-duty vehicles is provided on the TURP website. Selected to receive grant funding will be required to sign a contract with TCEQ. The approved activities outlined in the application will be presented in the contract scope of work. Grant recipients commit to taking all actions necessary to ensure the successful completion and subsequent operation of the new vehicles. Payments to the grantee are awarded on a reimbursement basis, and proof of purchase documentation is required to receive funds. Grantees must complete all activities and submit proof of purchase documents to TCEQ by April 30th, 2027. If the grantee finances the vehicle, the reimbursement will be assigned to the company that provided the financing. Disposition of all old vehicles is required. After the new equipment is purchased and reimbursement is received, the grantee will have 90 days to render the old vehicle and engine permanently inoperable. Proof of disposition is required. The time period used to determine the emissions reductions for each activity is referred to as the activity life. The activity life will start on the date TCEQ approves disposition for an activity and will end on the earlier of the 5th anniversary of the date of reimbursement for the activity, or the date the vehicle reaches 400,000 miles after the date of reimbursement. TCEQ will notify the grantee in writing of the activity life start and end dates. This ends the program information portion of the webinar. I'll now turn it over to my colleague Annette to present the SUNS online application portion of the presentation. We will open the floor for questions after Annette presents an overview of the SUNS online application.
Thanks, Michaela. Good afternoon. My name is Annette Barganer, and I will provide you with a walkthrough of the SUNS online application for TCFP. The slides are pretty self-explanatory, but we think it will be helpful for you to see what the online application looks like. If you have any questions, please write down the slide number and we will take your questions at the end of the presentation. Please note that these online application instructions are currently available on the TCFP program webpage. The welcome screen shown here will ask for your name and email address. Use the email address where you want to receive confirmation that your application was submitted. Next, select the last item on the list titled Texas Emissions Reduction Plan. Then click on New TERP Activity. Be sure to select the TCFP application and click Next. You will be asked to create a password. It is important to note, we are unable to recover or reset your password if you forget it. You will need to start over and create an entirely new application if you forget your password. Do not forget your password. After you create your password, a reference number will be assigned. You can make note of it, but it will also be in the confirmation email you receive when your application is successfully submitted. Enter your password to edit or start an application. When moving through the online application, you will see yellow warning messages if something could be wrong. This is your indicator to double check what you entered. If you believe the information is correct, you can proceed. Red error messages indicate something is incorrect or incomplete. You will need to correct your entry. A red asterisk is shown next to mandatory questions. The system will not allow you to proceed without answering those questions. The online application has a very helpful navigation menu. Please note that all sections must be completed in the order shown. You cannot skip around. The application will automatically take you to the next section after the current section is fully complete. Completed sections will be marked as done. Incomplete sections will be marked as to do. You are allowed to exit the application and return later to complete your to-do list. Eligibility criteria will be completed here. You must indicate that you are replacing vehicles, operate a fleet of 75 or more on-road vehicles, and are submitting a minimum of 10 activities to proceed with the application. This slide shows where you will begin adding applicant information. Please note that only certain applicant types will require Social Security numbers, filing or charter numbers, and employer ID numbers. More applicant information will be entered here. If you select the option that says one or more individuals own 25% or more of the business entity, you will need to provide those individual names and Social Security numbers. I want to make sure I have everyone's attention now. If you are a third-party preparer, please share your password with the authorized official. The authorized official will have to log into the application using the third-party preparer's password. Third-party preparers should make a different password for each applicant they are assisting. Please note, the authorized official must type his or her name exactly as the third-party preparer entered it, even if it was entered incorrectly. The authorized official will then have an opportunity to correct a misspelled name. You will continue to add general information here. The only project type for TCFP is replacement. This slide shows where you will select the emission source, fuel type, and an optional business description. Select your primary area and enter the percentage of time the grant-funded equipment will be used in that area. Please note that if activities have different usage percentages or different counties, you will be prompted to fill this section out on each activity page. You will use this map to select your primary area. Note that 25% of the annual miles on the grant-funded vehicle must occur in the highlighted counties. If you select Clean Transportation Zone for the primary area, enter the percent into percent in other counties in the Clean Transportation Zone. Other counties include the counties circled on the slide. For a full list, please consult the RFGA. The application will have a list of general certifications. Select Agree to certify that you understand and will comply with the listed statements. Note that the screenshot here is just an example of the first few and not the comprehensive list of certifications. Here you will indicate whether or not the applicant had any connection with an executive of TCEQ or any other state agency, or whether or not they employed or used the services of an executive with TCEQ or any other state agency. This next section has additional certifications that applicants must read and agree to. I want to mention again, if the application is being completed by a third-party preparer, it is important to note that the authorized official must log into SUNS to sign the application. The authorized official will log in using the third-party preparer's password. Authorized officials must type in their names exactly as they were entered by the third-party preparer. If there are any misspellings, the authorized official can make appropriate edits. Third-party preparers, please use a unique password for each applicant. Information for the designated project representative, or DPR, will be entered here. If the DPR is the same person as the authorized official, you can use the copy feature. Contact information for the third-party preparer is collected here. After all of the contact information has been entered, you will arrive at this screen where you will begin to enter activity information. Information about your old activities will be entered here. The following must be included: the vehicle category, the vehicle class and type, the VIN, the vehicle make, model, and year, the GVWR, the engine make and model, the engine ID or serial number, the fuel type, the engine family code, and the federal NOx emissions rate. Information about your new activities will be entered here. The following must be included: vehicle type, vehicle model year, engine model year, fuel type, and the federal NOx emissions rate. Complete the waiver, disposition, and grant amount fields on here. Note that the requested grant amount cannot be more than 80% of the total eligible cost of the new vehicle. Upload color photographs, vehicle title, and registration documentation of the old vehicle. When attaching the color photographs, pay attention to which side of the vehicle the prompt is asking for. After you have completed all your activity pages, applicants must upload a completed, signed, and dated IRS Form W-9. Once your application is complete, you will electronically sign it. Select the application, click the Sign button, and enter your password. Third-party preparers will electronically sign here. They should then share their password with the authorized official so they can electronically sign the application. Authorized officials will electronically sign here. After your application is submitted, you can view and print it if you choose. You will receive an automatically generated email once your application has been successfully submitted. Please keep this email. It will have a link to where you can access your application. For all program updates, I encourage you to visit the TERP webpage. Click the subscribe button and you can sign up for the TERP Hot Topics email list. This concludes our presentation. Contact information is shown here. Thank you all so much for your time.